When I was a kid, my parents decided to throw me my 9th birthday party at my house. This was unusual, as most kids would simply have their parties at one of those indoor playground centers. Shout out to Coco's. While initially disappointed, as I loved Coco's, I quickly realized, wait a minute, this is gonna be awesome! Having a bunch of friends over at my house all at once? We'll get to hang out, eat snacks, and hey, I have like a million PS2 games we'll get to play all day. It was like 2011, but so what, it was still new to me. Eventually, as my party came to an end and everyone left, I decided I would sit in my living room and play one of my favorite games. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the game. It was one of the first games I ever got for the system, and one I loved coming back to. But that's when I heard a car pulling into the driveway, in which a small group of kids who weren't able to come to the party due to having a football game got out and started walking to the door. This was around the age when you're no longer super good friends with everybody in your class, but they all still get an invite to your birthday party. We've all had that. Either way, they all walked into my living room, said happy birthday, and then looked up, seeing me running around as Patrick Star playing the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the game. And in that moment, without a single word being said, I knew they were thinking just one thought. What is this guy doing playing a SpongeBob SquarePants video game at 9 years old? And so after standing there in silence, one of them finally decided to speak up, in which all they could say was, SpongeBob, cool. I felt like the biggest wiener on the planet, because that was the day I realized it was no longer cool to like SpongeBob. Now, this second-hand embarrassment, I imagine, wasn't very uncommon for kids that like SpongeBob. What do you mean just a couple years ago we were all sitting around, laughing our asses off at the SpongeBob movie in class, and now I'm some kind of asshole for wanting to play the game based on it? I think Nickelodeon were aware of this problem as well, that slightly older kids were less likely to openly admit they enjoyed SpongeBob, given its more kiddie appearance on the outside. In fact, a lot of cartoons ran into this problem. I remember a similar story coming from Craig McCracken, where he recalls boys refusing to admit they watched the Powerpuff Girls unless they were completely secure in knowing nobody else would find out about this. And so what do you do when you find yourself in this predicament? All you kids television executives watching this video right now? How do you try and make SpongeBob SquarePants, this guy, appeal to older kids? Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, I'm not uploading my videos to Spotify, by the way. Go give me a follow, thanks. If there's something I always notice when going back and looking through SpongeBob's extensive history, it would have to be that strange period between 2003 and 2007, where Nickelodeon were trying their damnedest to make SpongeBob SquarePants cool. Now some of you might be saying to yourselves, what do you mean? SpongeBob is cool. And to that, yeah, that's fair. But I'm talking about a different kind of cool. A more in-your-face kind of cool. I'm talking about when Nickelodeon wanted to make SpongeBob SquarePants edgy. Yeah, when I was growing up, SpongeBob was cool, now he's just lame and woke. Now this may sound like a strange observation, but I'm positive when I break it down for you, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You can pinpoint this exact era by doing one simple thing, and that's taking a look through SpongeBob video games from the time. Now, SpongeBob had been getting games as early as 2001, ranging in quality from bad to worse. But if you look at the box art for each of these games, you'll notice a pretty clear pattern in the way SpongeBob is presented. Simple, stock, happy face. The only game to stray away from this being Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, where he's scared. Of the Flying Dutch, you get it. This is to be expected. SpongeBob is typically seen as a very cheerful and happy-go-lucky character, so it makes sense to go with the happy mascot platformer approach, no different to a character like Mario. From the early stages of his design to when the show finally aired, those aspects of SpongeBob's character never changed. He was a nerdy goofball, and so naturally a majority of the merchandise from the time presented him as such. But that all changed in 2003. With the release of one game that changed the course of how SpongeBob was presented for the next, 4 years, felt like it lasted a lot longer at the time. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. I remember walking by this game in a store and thinking, so try-hard. They really are desperate to make SpongeBob not lame. Little did I know this attempt undeniably worked, as Battle for Bikini Bottom is by far the most popular SpongeBob game to ever release. This box art presented SpongeBob in a way that was rarely seen from other merchandise. They were trying to make SpongeBob cool. I mean, just look at this cocky sponge coming to destroy your fragile ego with a look. It was 2003. The era of Tony Hawk and awesome sauce. And it seemed like Nick wanted to experiment more with trying to make SpongeBob fit into that world. That's kind of the amazing thing about SpongeBob, that he appealed to every demographic imaginable. Just like you could have SpongeBob merch aimed more towards younger kids or girls, why not have some stuff try to appeal more to slightly older boys? Try to make it more socially acceptable to like SpongeBob as an older kid. Even beyond gender or age, this also came down to how SpongeBob was presented in different countries as well. You have various examples of this through many franchises, such as Sonic the Hedgehog's edginess getting amped up to 11 in the USA compared to how he was introduced in Japan and Europe. Or Kirby frequently having his smile changed to a more stern look in the US. I guess some focus tests somewhere showed that American kids, boys especially, responded better to a cover that didn't look so bubbly, and with SpongeBob it was no different. There's a ton of examples showcasing this from all over the franchise's history. I mean, look at the poster for the Atlantis SquarePants special in the USA compared to Japan. Or perhaps the biggest example being how the cover for the SpongeBob movie game managed to look the exact same everywhere else in the world, yet in America, it's this. You know, this shit doesn't just happen. Somebody decided they wanted to use a cooler cover for this specific region. So much thought goes into every aspect of promoting something like this, and so there's no denying that Nickelodeon thought something as simple as using this cover instead would help the game sell better. And I can't really say they were wrong to think that. The mid-2000s also marked a rise in boys' action shows, so it made sense to want to try and add that sort of flair to the SpongeBob franchise. Especially with the massive success of Battle for Bikini Bottom, it must have only encouraged them to push this further, see how far they could take this approach. They started getting ambitious with SpongeBob, trying to make him the opposite of what he was intended to be. Cool. And I think what's so amazing about this is that none of this felt unnatural. Like, this is something you only really notice in retrospect because of how well this was done. I mean, like, I'm sure there were some diehard SpongeBob fans at the time who felt like this direction strayed too far away from the character, and like a desperate attempt to cash in on the success of boys' action shows at the time. But for someone in that prime demographic they were trying to appeal to at the time, it worked. I thought it was cool. I loved the attempt to try and do something more epic with a character that seemed so ill-suited for the role. I adored specials like Dunces and Dragons or Atlantis SquarePants for trying to do more with these characters, and I think that's what I respect most about all that. It's that they managed to do this without betraying SpongeBob as a character. At no point did any of this feel weird or unnatural. I mean, this move could have easily gone south and tarnished the brand. Trying to make SpongeBob badass? What are you, high? Just look at other franchises' attempts to try and appeal to older audiences in the mid-2000s. My mind jumps to a show like Looney Tunes trying to revive itself in 2005 with Lunatics Unleashed, where descendants of the Looney Tunes characters get superpowers. Whoa! This obviously flopped, every single human being on the planet knowing how pathetic of a move this was, and a complete betrayal to the characters these guys were wearing the skin of. Look, it's cooler Bugs Bunny. We're calling him Buzz Bunny. Great, print it.
Good, got it, great, good.
I mean, when not even babies like it, you know you've seriously screwed up. They watch fucking sensory fruit videos and even know this guy ain't Bugs fucking Bunny. But Nickelodeon were smart about it. They knew they just had to push things a little bit and it would make all the difference. They stayed true to SpongeBob's personality, and I think the success of this edgier approach only stood as testament to how good of a character he is. That you could get away with making SpongeBob look like this. It showed that SpongeBob really can be put in any situation and have it work, something the crew seemed to realize after the success of the SpongeBob movie. Stephen Hillenburg was initially against the idea of a movie altogether, not believing the characters or humor could translate into a more epic cinematic story. But after giving it a go with the rest of the staff, they not only found out how to make it work, but also completely opened the floodgates for what could be done with SpongeBob in general.
One day I thought, what if there was a story where the characters, SpongeBob and Patrick, go on a journey and they end up on the surface, which just conceptually, you know, that it would kind of bring them into this other reality. Really the thing that led me to be interested in trying to do a feature with the characters.
Here we come!
A very similar thing happened with Fairly OddParents around the exact same time. You got a show about a boy with a mean babysitter being given a pair of silly fairy godparents. Yet by the third season we were having Timmy fucking using weapons to battle an all-powerful dictator on top of an atom. And speaking of Fairly OddParents, Nickelodeon then decided to take their new approach with SpongeBob to its logical extreme. Instead of trying to find ways for SpongeBob to be put in these dire situations in his own world, how about we pluck him into other universes and see him in situations never thought possible in Bikini Bottom? This is where they made the Nicktoons Unite saga, a team-up between 4 of the most popular Nicktoons at the time. Here we saw SpongeBob completely out of his element. He was like a fish out of water or something. He was now part of this Avengers-esque team that only got more and more expansive, trying to save the entire planet from total destruction multiple times. They created their own lore and dynamics between these characters who were never supposed to meet. I mean, look at this. We started with a goofy character designed to personify childhood innocence and the importance of not losing that once you reach adulthood, and 5 years later, here's that same character battling ghosts, teaming up with humans and trying to retrieve a king's crown or else his boss is gonna get murdered. And it all worked. I think this era was reaching its end in 2007. I want to say by the last Nicktoons game, Globs of Doom, it was already on its way out. Again, it's the perfect frame of reference to check out the video game covers from the time. After Battle for Bikini Bottom, they kept up this cooler, edgier look for the character. And then, just like that, it was done. Back to the happy-go-lucky mascot again. If I were to try and guess why Nickelodeon stopped this, it would have to be that kind of edginess wasn't really needed anymore. I think around the late 2000s, any attempt at this was seen as more try-hard, like turning Sonic into a werewolf, or giving Shadow the Hedgehog a gun. Which, I mean, now we can all agree is fucking cool. The times had changed. We saw the perfect storm for the end of this era of SpongeBob. Not only were action cartoons starting to once again lessen in popularity, but the same could be said for platformers too, never mind licensed games. It was less likely SpongeBob would need to be put in these intense life-or-death situations, and the show didn't really show any kind of desire to do so either. You have to remember this was also at the advent of Adventure Time premiering, a show which completely changed the game. Suddenly trying to be edgy was considered more lame than ever. Now it was all about algebraic and YOLO and hashtag awesomeness. Things got sillier, more rounded, and younger boys were now more interested in playing Call of Duty, not SpongeBob, Creature from the Krusty Krab. Trying to appeal to that market with a character like SpongeBob just came off kinda laughable, an impossible task. And since this time, for the past 10 or so years I want to say, we've seen the SpongeBob franchise all but give up on trying to do anything with SpongeBob that isn't an outright goofy comedy. Not that I'm complaining, I understand expecting anything more is stupid, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I was in the perfect demographic to enjoy it at the time. But I'll always appreciate and look back fondly on this strange little point in SpongeBob's history. The era where Nickelodeon tried to make SpongeBob cool, and succeeded.